Hello, 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 and welcome into Beyond the Den on the Bear Claw Media podcast. It's been a minute since we've looked outside the friendly confines of the University of Northern Colorado, but here we are today. And Ben, I'm tramping in on your as always territory because as always now we are brought to you by Crave Hot Dogs and Barbecue in Greeley, Colorado, offering specialty all beef hot dogs, savory barbecue and sides, plus a self-pour beer wall. It's a perfect setting for family outings or a night with friends. Stop by and hashtag beat the craving today. Ben, how you doing, buddy?
Good, buddy. Love that we have Crave Barbecue on for this year. Excited to have a sponsorship for the podcast. Excited to be in the green. That's always good. But just excited that this is a hobby that other people are taking notice of and appreciating that we're out here doing hard work. And, we had our cozy bear blankets on so we can be all optimistic. Now we're going to be realistic and be like, hey, this is what the big sky looks like.
Yes, so we broke it down into a handful of categories to kind of talk about it in a less just kind of running through schedules type of way. So I think we thrive on negativity, Ben. So let's go with the disappointing team. Who are you lower consensus on than the average bear, would you say?
Well, the average bear isn't even at the top of the conference, so I'm not sure that we're allowed to look down on people. So I'm gonna go second, but that's because I think mine is a little spicy.
Okay. So I really had two when I was looking through this. And for off the top, I'm going to take Portland State. I said in the last episode, I mean, they're picked to finish third to last. I think they'll finish dead last. I think there's a good chance that I think they have a 3-win ceiling. Basically, I would be shocked if they won more than that. They lose Dante Sauchere, 3-year starter at quarterback. Kind of, they don't have somebody necessarily waiting in the wings. Not that you always have to, but it's kind of nice to have that guy in the chamber when you lose an all conference level player. Uh, they have Tarleton at BYU at North Dakota, who should be by all accounts much better this year. Then at Hawaii, and then they start conference play with NAU. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's almost 5 guaranteed losses to start the season. Their first chance really for a win, October 4th at Eastern Washington. And like I said, I could see him finishing dead last in the Big Sky. I think 3 wins may save Barney's job, and it actually may be justified because they're in a spot like UNC where it's tough to really
No, go for it. They're not mine.
UNC, Portland State, and Cal Poly, the 3 teams picked below them in the coaches poll, and they play Weber, who is also below them in the media poll. So they have a good chance to get a few wins, but we talked a little bit about Jared Taylor on last pod. I think he is like second most like proven quarterback coming back, which is kind of crazy because the quarterback play in the Big Sky has been really, really high the last couple of years. But he's just unproven. He could be good. He just hasn't shown much because he hasn't been asked to show much. Huge athlete. Replacing Kiko Visperis, though, he's one of those guys where I was always I think the lore around him was a little bit better than the player itself. But that being said, he was still a really solid FCS quarterback. But they're another one where I think they could reasonably start 0-3. They have Incarnate Word at Boise State and at Northern Iowa, who Northern Iowa is another one of those teams that I think should be much better this year. Michael Wortham also out, like their other quarterback / wide receiver that had spent some time. They lost Ethan Chisholm. It just feels like a bottom out year. They've been trending downward for the past 4 seasons, and now I think Best has had some chances to like regroup and has not. And I think the previous years he had a better chance to have a bounce back year than this year. I'm just not seeing it for Eastern Washington either.
That's fair. Yeah, I think all those points are valid, and yeah, I almost feel like, is it worth putting Portland State in the disappointing category if they never left it, but also like disappointing in the fact that like they're just consistently have they don't have a cot, they don't have a sleeping bag, they have a full on year lease rental there. They're they're
they
well into it,
they're
much
on
like
that
us.
type of housing
Unfortunately,
that landlords can't kick you out like legally. I
right.
I don't know what the term is for it, but yeah, they're an extended stay.
Like I guess we can't really talk much because we're like
As are
in
we.
a Section 8 highway motel, basically as Bears fans. But again, I think we're trying more than they are. But even so, I get why you put them down in the disappointing. I'm gonna take a swing for the fences, and it's gonna piss people off. They're gonna say, "No, they can't possibly be that bad. They recruited so well." I think it's
Portland State.
horseshit until it comes to fruition. Sacramento State.
Ooh, buddy,
I'm
you're
not
gonna look
trying.
so wrong at the end of the season.
Well, I don't think so. I think Brendan Marion is a great coach, great recruiter. I think that all the hype is going to hit a wall, and there's going to be a fork in the road where the people stay on the train and stay loyal, or they're going to bail like a train on fire, and people just choosing life or death. I feel like it's going to be one of the two, and it's going to all hinge on that FBS decision. But starting out the year, I don't care how much they lost. They are losing to South Dakota State. They're going to South Dakota State, and I don't see this being some fairy tale dethrone, decapitate, the king type shit. No, South Dakota State is going to put Sacramento State in their place and really give them a measuring stick. Nevada, terrible team. They're still FBS. They still recruit better than the Big Sky does. They
Well,
still they
besides
might.
Sacramento State, if you look at all the
True,
rankings.
true. But are freshmen going to be able to come on the field and ball out as true freshmen? I'm skeptical. Again, Sacramento State did fantastic in recruiting. They did fantastic in getting big names, big money, theoretically. It's pledges versus actual money. I don't know. People are getting paid. We just don't know how much. But really, it's just like those first 2 weeks, I don't think they're coming out and shocking Nevada. I think Nevada's dog shit, but it could be a close game, but I just don't see that as an automatic win like everybody's talking. Mercyhurst, it's going to be a mercy roll. Like, Sacramento State's going to roll over them just fine. Central Arkansas, that's kind of a little bit of a question mark. It was a perennial playoff team or fringe playoff team. That might be where Sacramento State gets a little bit of momentum, finally picks up a win over a good or used to be good team. But really, I feel like those first 4 weeks are a big test for them. And if they don't rise above it, they're going to have a bad season because the rest of the schedule, they get some cupcakes for sure, including us. But then they have to host Montana. Montana is always kind of a weird one with Sac State. Like, I don't know what the bad juju is there, but there is a lot of times where Sac State pulls out that win. I think Montana's just a little bit sturdier, a little bit more consistent. We'll see how that goes. And then they finish the year hosting Idaho and going to UC Davis. I'm pretty sure if Idaho and UC Davis have their way, they're going to keep the FBS villains, the Big Sky leaving, the horrible Hornets out of the playoffs. I don't see this as this magical ride to the top and slaying the dragon on their way out of the FCS, or at least trying to leave the FCS and probably going independent and ultimately killing their university. But if the doom and gloom doesn't happen, they still have a hard schedule. I'd say at least 6 of these games are tough, if not a loss for these guys. So, I mean, at best, I'm seeing Sacramento State coming out of the year 7-5, maybe getting a playoff bid. I don't think it's going to be this rise to the top rocket trip that everybody thinks it is.
See, let's we can merge categories here a bit because I have Sac State in the next category as my surprising team.
Okay,
Um, so
just they got a
I
tough schedule either way.
yeah no see I shout out to whoever put out this Big Sky graphic with all the schedules like next to each other. So that's what I'm trying to pull up now. I'm with you. I could see them starting 0-2, and I'm still high on them. Like but also I don't think going to SDSU is like the guaranteed loss that you think it is. I think it's a likely loss, and I think by all accounts they will be probably a 7 to 10 point underdog. But I also could see with SDSU a new coaching staff, half the team went to Washington State. The best quarterback that they've had in however long at Iowa now. I don't think that's a guaranteed loss for Sac State, but I'm with you. I could see him starting 0-2, like easily, losing to Nevada as well. But I think it's like
So, Chris, are you saying
not.
that they beat the number 3 team in the country according to the Stats Perform poll?
I think they could. I think they very easily could. I'm not like choosing them to, but I think they 1,000,000% could.
That would
I
be
think yeah.
surprising.
Same with Nevada. I think they're probably in a similar boat with both SDSU and Nevada. It's like a similar type of game where I don't think they will win, but I think they have every opportunity to win. Because
Okay, here's a
they
scary devil's advocate scenario for you. Because Central Arkansas is a bit of a flighty team, so that's not necessarily a tough game, but it could be historically. So if they roll through those two and slay those two dragons, potentially they're looking at 7-0, 7-0 going into that Montana game on October 24th, Friday. Weird game. But maybe
probably
the schedule makers know something
ESPN
here.
too,
Exactly. ESPN2 late night. That's a
which
Big Sky
Montana
banger.
will also, by all accounts, should be undefeated going into that game because they, on the other hand, play St. Mary Sister Elephant School of the Deaf and Blind for 6 straight weeks to open the season.
They play
Um,
Idaho.
oh yeah, I forgot they have Idaho
So
before
Idaho,
Sac
Central
State.
Washington, scary D2 team. They did let them in the door a couple years ago. Didn't lose.
I think
Central
they
Washington is a D2 perennial playoff team. But you're right. That's not exactly the worst schedule ever. I mean, Sacred Heart, what the hell? How did that even happen? Cal Poly, Idaho State, Idaho, Indiana State, North Dakota, Central Washington. At least compared to Sacramento State, they're doing a lot less to get to that 7-0.
I could see Sac State having 2 losses. I'd be surprised if they lost to all 3, SDSU, Nevada, and Central Arkansas. But I think they'll pretty confidently will be undefeated in the Big Sky, going into that Montana game. And then I think if they win that one, they're in the driver's seat to play in the conference title game because they miss Montana State this year. They do have a tough schedule, but miss the big boy. Then they should beat EWU and Portland State. So then it comes down to, I think if they split Idaho and UC Davis, I think they will be the surprising team because they have so much variance. I think it actually works really well, you having them disappointing and me having them surprising, because that's kind of, we're catching the ceiling
And
and the
then
floor.
expectations is either really great or terrible. Because I mean, just to set the reference, they would be going 7-5 or better from coming from a 3-9 season where they were 1-7, and technically, the
Dead
Big Sky
last, I
website
think.
lists them. The Big Sky website lists them under us. I think that's an error, but
No,
just saying.
I think that's legit because when there's some tiebreaker that doesn't matter because who gives a shit about the bottom 3. But when they
Because we
did
beat Weaver.
they did that clause mascot bracket, or the mascot bracket, and they seeded it by football results, and we were like 11th instead of, or we weren't last, we were second,
Hey,
third
not
from last.
last.
So I think whatever tiebreaker they used, we were favorable in. But I really
Okay,
think,
Bears fans. Side note: it's always a fun game when you're like the last couple of games of the season, and you're taking bets whether you're last or not last. Not last is always a win.
but I think honestly, we'll get to this a little. I see Montana, Idaho, UC Davis, and Sac State as like one of those is going to push through, and I'm choosing it to be Sac State because they all seem very similar in my head. You could even throw NAU in there, but I'm a little, now that I've settled in more, I think I'm a little lower on NAU. And I really, really, really wanted to be lower on Montana, but they play just such an easy schedule that they're gonna Bobby Houck could like legitimately be fired with cause for going 8-4 this year. You know, that's the type of schedule the Grizz play. So, who's your surprise team, Ben?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm not sure that I'm necessarily set on it. I think I'm still looking for somebody to give me a spark to beat Montana State. So really, if I had to, if I really really have to
You
pick
do have
somebody,
to.
I'm picking UC Davis. Now I know they just lost their quarterback, Miles Hastings. He's OG, 4,000 yards. That's hard to replace.
Are you expecting them to win the Big Sky? Because they are like a top 10 team in the country projected. Like, so
Like, I
to
don't
be
know.
surprising, they have to. I think they'd have to take a step. I feel like the step up for them to make is like national title game because they were in the semis last year.
Right. No, that's fair. And of course, like ESPN, I don't know what your bias is against UC Davis, but you don't want to give me their schedule. So shout out Big Sky website for actually working. But
Here, let me.
I got it here. So surprising team, I'm gonna stay with them. So it's a weird schedule. I can't. Oh, that's last year's. Okay,
Mercer
sorry.
at Utah
Technical
Tech,
difficulties.
at Washington, Southern Utah for non-con, which I think you're higher on Southern Utah than I am. Um, then they have Weber at Cal Poly, NAU, us, Idaho State at Idaho, at Montana State. They end with at Idaho, at Montana State, and hosting Sac State.
Yeah, and I'm still gonna stay on it. I'm still gonna say UC Davis if there is gonna be a surprise team because I feel like the more likely scenario is Montana State wins out the conference. They win out the conference. They're gonna lose to Oregon. Like no ifs ands or buts about that. But I feel like they might take down South Dakota State. But here, UC Davis, I feel like they're gonna be the surprise team at least early. Mercer, great team, great playoff team. I just don't think they're on Big Sky level. Now I could look like egg on my face having UC Davis lose to them, but I think UC Davis still returns enough. And we were talking about this with the Big Sky polls, enough big men, enough playmakers that, even the Larison and Hastings combo being left out, I feel like they just reload and rebuild. So as long as they can do the Eastern thing with quarterbacks and running backs, I feel like they're able to do that until they prove that they're kind of ran their luck out. Utah Tech, that should be a win. Washington, money game. But the rest of it, like, I don't think they're going to have a problem until they hit that last stretch of those last three games. Like, they might have some scares here and there, but the last three games is the meat and potatoes of your schedule. And if you're hitting your prime level going into playoffs, that's the best place to be.
That's fair. I agree. I think they could be not undefeated, but they could be a one-loss team undefeated in FCS play heading into those last 3 weeks. But that's such a gauntlet. I think they'd have to win 2 of those 3, including one against Montana State, to win the conference. And I just don't. I believe in them. I think they'll likely be, if not a seed, they'll be close to a seed. But I shied away just because I kind of think that's where people have them slated, so it's not necessarily a surprise. But I think we're on a similar page on that one. So let's move on to player of the year. Ben, we kind of already blew our load on this one because we did vote for a player of the year preseason at least.
We did vote for it, but it was also a multiple choice question, so it wasn't open ended. So is there anybody outside of those offers that those options that you had on your mind?
Yeah, you're not gonna like it. I
Rashana.
I think it could. I think legitimately Adam Jones and Eli Gilman are pretty obviously the two set up to win this award. But I think if there is a wild card, I would say it's Rashada, and it kind of ties into to me thinking Sac State's going to be pretty good this year. But Jones and Gilman, like, identical seasons last year. And I'm leaning towards Adam Jones because he was like the second back behind Scott Ray Humphrey last year. And he put up 184 carries, 1172 yards, 14 touchdowns, 6.4 yards per carry, and 78 yards per game. And Gilman was 167 carries, 1148 yards, 15 touchdowns, 6.6 yards per carry, and also 78 yards per game. So, like, if you put these two in a blind comparison, people would be like, why are you blind comparing these two? They're the exact same. Like, why do you expect me to pick? But I think just with the pedigree of what Montana State has been, and I assume a good chunk of that will continue the way it has been, I'm gonna go with Adam Jones here. It's very, very chalk, but I took some risks elsewhere.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I'm gonna go chalk as well with Adam Jones just because I feel like Montana State is constantly developing NFL talent at the O line, if not bringing them in from elsewhere. I also feel like it's just, you know, keep doing the same run play until somebody stops you. Like, and there's not going
Literally,
to be a whole lot of teams in this league that couldn't stop the eye power, or that could stop the eye power from Montana State. Just, all right, let's load up. Let's be a service academy. Kill them down the hole. Kill them down the end
side
gap.
zone
Kill 'em. Yeah,
60 times a
yeah. Do
game.
a little pitch toss. Once they're all brought in, thinking it's going to be an eye power again, and just murder them on the edges. I feel like Adam Jones um, is the shoe in. He's kind of like the one to be dethroned until otherwise. Um, I'm just with so much quarterback change. I think there's at least 7 new quarterbacks potentially, depending on whoever wins their fall camp battles. I think there's at least 7 new quarterbacks or new starters across the Big Sky. So I don't think this is going to be year of the quarterback. I think this is going to be year of the playmaker. If we're throwing other potential playmakers in there, I'm sticking to the ballot as well, which I'm going to
That
go
damn
with.
ballot, actually. I want to be mad at it, but I think they got that one pretty,
I
pretty
feel
right.
like there could have been a little bit more diversity in there. Some SIDs could have thrown some players out there, and there would have been a good consensus of people who would have went for it. I think there was definitely players left off the ballot, but talking about just absolute all around dogs who the Big Sky, let's be honest, this has been a specialist league. Like Rashid Shaheed, Junior Bergen, Jacob Bobenmeyer, like this has been a league where there's been very good specialist or very good specialist play that has been, Sports Center top 10 worthy. It's been top of the FCS worthy. And I think that's going to be a continuing trend with Taco Dowler, which I've been high on him literally since he's got to campus at Montana State, not just because he has a sick name, but just because he has an innate ability to get after the outside edges. I think if he gets worked into the passing game a little bit more as a deep threat, a little bit more as a crossing threat, and doesn't get his lights turned off by a linebacker who's waiting for him, I think he's a great pick, and I think Michael Wortham could be a good pick, but I'm going to lean Taco Dowler, so I'm going to all MSU for player of the year just because their players. I'm not trying to just ride chalk all the way to the top, but legitimately, Jones and Dowler are instinctual players that have just God-given ability that's just higher than some players can reach with all of their effort towards improving.
So are you picking Jones or Dowler?
I'm picking Jones, but Dowler could be the surprise guy if Jones gets stuffed.
See, I think I'm with you. But I think Dowler will be too special team. Like his contributions will be too like skewed towards special teams to like probably get that many votes. But I'm with you. I think he's such a difference maker and such an impact guy going into this season. So this one, biggest game. It's kind of the one that it doesn't necessarily like it doesn't have to be like Brawl of the Wild is a big an example. There's a lot of stakes on it every time. And so this one's kind of one of those games that we think really has a big impact on whether it be playoff seeding or potential or just kind of how the conference shakes out. And so I have really the four teams I mentioned earlier: Idaho, Sac State, Montana, and UC Davis. Toss them in a cup and like shake them, roll the dice out, like Lamb said with the running backs, and pick one. Like just pick one. Pick any matchup between these four teams. But because I'm so high on Sac State, I'm going to go with the Idaho at Sac State game, November 11th. I think Idaho is going to beat Montana in that one. I think Sac State's going to beat Montana, and I think this one will be, depending on if Montana State slips up, it could be to win the Big Sky. But more realistically, I think a lot of them are competing for that second spot, and I think this game will determine that second spot. So if there was a title game, it would kind of be deciding who that second team in the Big Sky title game would theoretically be. So that one's November 11th, Idaho in Sacramento. So I think there'll be a lot of stakes on the line for that game, whether it be playoff seeding. I'm imagining both teams will probably be in the playoffs at that point, but there'll still be some stakes on that game.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Gosh, I'm trying to find a Big Sky game that doesn't involve Sacramento State as much as I don't, as much as I'm still on the disappointing train. It's hard to not choose one with them. I think mine really boils down to two different choices. I think I'm going to stick with the one I already talked about, of Sac State, October 24th, ESPN2, 8:30 p.m. Get your coffee ready. They are going to be hosting Montana. I think that's going to be a make it or break it of whether or not Sac State is still in the playoff contention at that point. If they still look like a team that can still make it there, is Rashada still healthy? Is their 4-star still healthy? Has everybody not fought each other and turned into an all brawl? Are they getting along? Are they a coal train literally moving at red hot, ice hot, momentum towards the playoffs? If they are, and it's still kind of a interesting league going forward from that, because you could choose any game on Montana State's schedule and it'd be interesting as well. But I think another question mark game that also involves Sacramento State is the last game of the year. What if Sacramento State has a season somewhere in between where both of us are picking them, and it comes down to, can they beat Davis at home? I think that one's a pretty sweaty game as well. That's deep in November. It's still going to be lovely weather in California, but the two
California.
yeah, the two. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Davis is still pretty nice that time of year, I could imagine, but either way, like the two California teams that matter. Sorry, Cal Poly. Like we haven't even talked about you. Like now we have.
We're not the only Big Sky Conference preview that hasn't touched on Cal Poly, I don't
Yeah.
think.
So, just for reference, Cal Poly, Weber State, Idaho State. Okay, we talked about everybody. Good for you. Northern Arizona, we will get to you in over unders. You're kind of a mystery team as well, but if Sacramento State is kind of poised, maybe they can get above NAU. Maybe they can kind of still have enough to be in that 7-win or gonna get 7-win category. I feel like that UC Davis game at the end of the year might be whether or not the Big Sky shuts the gate and kind of keeps playoffs from Sacramento in their last Big Sky year, or if they sneak in and still matter.
Yeah, no, those are good ones. Brawl of the Wild also will likely have stakes. But I
Always a
think
good game that might just determine seeds at that point.
Exactly. And that's what a lot of these will be doing. Who do you have as your champion, Ben? I kind of did mine as like I have Montana State and Sac State splitting it, but I think if I had to pick, I would say Montana State, because I'm just assuming I feel confident Sacramento State will drop one game, and I'm kind of assuming that Montana State will also drop one. So then it throws like a wrench in, and there could be like 3 7-1 Big Sky teams at the end of the year. But I'm gonna say Montana and Sac State for continuity with with kind of the rest of what I've done.
Okay. I didn't think about splitting. I'm worried this.
That's a bit of a cop out because I did a lot of this with having a title game in mind. Um, so that's kind of why I came to that conclusion. And there's not a title game, but that's why I kind of thought that way. But if I had to pick one, it would be Montana State.
I think Montana State starts out the year disgusting with Oregon and South Dakota State. Like Oregon, get your
They
money, don't
also
get
could be
hurt.
0-2 to start the year very easily. Same
They
as
could
Sac
be.
State.
I feel like South Dakota State. Yeah, what a schedule from South Dakota State. Like they're gonna have a
That's
freaking
brutal.
sexy resume if they're rolling hot through the non-con. But even so, just looking at it, I'm like, I don't know how I pick against them. If the beginning of the year goes poorly, sure. The rest of the
I
season's
mean,
going to
it
be absolutely wild.
still
But I
doesn't
think,
like they could lose those first two games and still win the Big Sky outright at 8-0. Like,
yeah, 100%. Just looking at it, I think I'm still going to lean chalk with that. If I had to put in a second, God, I hate it. Maybe they split with Montana.
what happened to UC Davis being your surprise team?
I like UC Davis. I like them, but like that last 2 weeks of the schedule, Montana State, Sacramento State, it leaves, and Idaho, it does leave room for error. It leaves room for, if you're not kicking in all cylinders, you're going to get kicked in the teeth. So
Fair.
I feel like schedule wise, Montana sets up well. I don't think they're the second best team in the Big Sky starting today, August 17th. But I think schedule wise, they could be the most productive, especially since they have 8 home games. Like, congrats, like Montana freaking scheduling
Somebody
crew.
can make
That's,
money off of home games. Way to go.
yeah, that's insane. Shout out them. Grizz fans are blessed beyond belief, and I think, yeah, that's the only way I could see the title splitting is Montana State.
Okay. Yeah, and that would have to mean like Montana one loss coming into the brawl and Montana State undefeated and then Montana winning that one, I assume.
Could okay. Could Montana, could Montana State beat Montana? They end up with the same record and they still share because of record, or the
Yeah,
tiebreaker.
no, I think if it's the same record they'll share even if there is a
That's where
direct
I'm
head to
thinking.
head.
I'm thinking record wise, Montana could be a skosh better because Montana State fumbled early.
Well, it only will take the 8 Big Sky games into account though. Like for that regard, you
Okay.
know. So
Well,
like it would have to be like one of them is undefeated and one has one loss coming in, and then the undefeated team loses. But I could see it because Montana just has to beat Idaho basically, and
Idaho and
then
Sac State, and like
yeah, which I could see them.
I could
I
see it.
could see them doing that.
I don't believe in it. I believe Montana State's the one to be dethroned, but we'll see what happens.
All right. Do you have some over unders for me, or
I
should we
do.
take a break to pay some bills while you scrap that up?
We should take a break to pay some bills because Crave Barbecue, great friends over there in Greeley. Love those guys. Love the barbecue. Specialty all beef hot dogs and lots of good sides. Fries, taters, coleslaws, and then can't beat the Dave and Buster's self pour beer wall loaded up on a little card. You pay per ounce. So if you want to try a couple ounces of that guy, a couple ounces of that guy, maybe you want some smoked whiskey, you got a lot of different choices to go from. So visit our friends over at Crave Barbecue and beat the craving today.
What you got for me, Ben?
So I'm a little wishy-washy on some of these numbers, but we're gonna go with them because I feel like they're good enough. So Montana State, just gonna highlight some games for you, just for food for thought. So they play Oregon first off, then they host South Dakota State. Other notable games uh, on their schedule is last 2 weeks, host Davis, go to Montana for the brawl. So I put them at 9.5.
Over.
Over? All right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think their two losses are early in the season if they have 2 losses.
Okay, fair enough.
I think 9.5 is a good number on that, but I feel pretty confident that it's over because they could slip up like in one of those last 2 games as well. But I think for them to only win 9, I think they split those 4 losable games, I guess is what I'm saying. So I think that keeps them at 10 wins.
Okay, so you're saying losses to
2
Oregon and
losses to, yeah, I think most realistically losses to Oregon and SDSU, but I think they go 2-2 against Oregon, SDSU, UC Davis, and Montana. I think they win at least 2 of those, and that keeps them at
okay,
10 wins.
fair enough. And then looking at UC Davis next, they have number 12 Mercer. They have University of Washington. Notable Big Sky opponents is Idaho, Montana State, and Sacramento State. They're at Idaho, at Bozeman, host Sacramento to end the season. I got them as 8.5.
See, that one's tough because I think
I'll let you chew on that one for a bit. For
I will.
Montana State, I forgot to pick because I know I'm setting the spread, so it's a little bit cheaterish. But I'm going to choose over, but they share the Big Sky title.
Okay. And for UC Davis, see, I'm going to go over 9.5, or over 8.5. Sorry, I think they end up better than Idaho. Is where the distinction comes in. I think they lose to Washington. Then I personally will stick to have them losing to Sac State and also lose to Montana State, but beat Idaho. And in reality, I think they lose to Washington and Montana State and split with Sac State and Idaho, and that'll get them to 9 wins.
That's fair. I think Mercer is not on the Big Sky level. Washington, I don't think we're on the Pac-12 level necessarily. So I think that's 1-1 right there. And then Idaho, I know it's at the KB Dome. That is tough, but I feel like if Davis is going to lose a game, and it's healthy team versus healthy team, I feel like they're going to lose Montana State. But that does leave the door for Sacramento State. So for right now, I'm going to say over, but I don't feel good about it.
Who do you got next? I
Then
assume
we got Montana. So they have Central Washington to start the year. I know D2 team, but D2 playoff team. They host Idaho, and then they go to Sacramento State, like we talked about, and they have Brawl the Wild at the end of the year. So not a whole lot of tough games necessarily. Definitely should be critical of their strength of schedule throughout the year. I put them at 10.5.
Under.
Okay.
Of all the kind of big teams, Montana is the one I'm lowest on. You said 10.5 or 9.5?
I said 10.5.
Okay. I see them winning 9 games. I have them losing to Idaho, Sac State, and Montana State. I think they'll still cruise right on into a playoff spot. All things will be peachy keen for the Grizz fans, but I think 9.5, because I have them at the bottom of this. Bottom of the 5.
Let's say the over-under comes down to 9.5. You still set
under.
on the under?
Yeah.
Okay.
That 9.5 is definitely that one. I'm much more.
I put it at 10.5 because you sounded pretty high on them, but now looking at it, you are a little skeptical in other categories, so I get that. I'm gonna go over though.
Okay. Fair.
I don't love it.
I think that's. Are you going over 9 or over 9.5 or over 10.5?
I'll go over 9.5 since you felt like the over under was a little iffy. I feel like you're a little bit better at setting those, but looking at that little, was it the Lil Brown Stein game? That could be interesting, but I feel like it being in Montana tie breaks that. Central Washington, I think that's going to be a good slap in the face to get Bobby Houck pissed at the beginning of the year.
Great
and
call.
Really, I don't see a lot on the schedule. Again, I'm down on Sac State, but Sac State is Montana's kryptonite, so I feel like that's a 60-40 Montana game, but if Sac State's cooking all cylinders, might come down a little bit closer to 50-50.
If I
Montana
was a
State,
sorry, I think you're on the right side of this because if this was an actual line, I bet it would be like minus 150 for the over 9.5 and like plus 120 for the under. So I think the odds would be juiced to. I think it's more likely they finish above that number, but I'm gonna stick with my gut and go with the under on that.
no, that's all right. You got a better feeling on Sacramento State than I do, so I think that's the decider right there. I
Honestly, yeah.
don't know that they win Brawl of the Wild, but it is in their favor to host it. So if they're gonna be a surprise, if they're gonna split the title, and they're mathematically in it at that point, that is the only time they're gonna have a shot at Montana State unless they fumble early. So I think that's kind of where that stands. So we got those ones picked. We're gonna go with your favorite team next because we're gonna see
Over.
just just how much just how much you like Sac State. So notable games on their schedule. First game of the year, go to Brookings to South Dakota State. Then they go to Reno for Nevada. Central Arkansas hosting them. You can say that's a potentially notable game. I don't think Central Arkansas is ranked at all, but interesting team historically. They host Montana October 24th. Is a Friday, so just for watching sake, that is a Friday game. And then the last two games of the season, host Idaho, go to Davis. So I put it at 8.5 since you're pretty high.
Yeah, I see 8.5 is interesting because South Dakota State and Nevada, those are two could be losses. Montana's a could be. They have Idaho's a could be loss, and UC Davis is a could be loss. So I think they have five like realistic losses on their schedule. So then I think I have to go over 8.5 because of all the takes I already have out into the ether on this podcast. Um, but if that was the number in real life, I don't know if I'd bet it. Like if it was
I'm willing
seven
to
and a
drop the
half,
line to
I
seven
would.
and a half, so
I
you
I
can be
think
confident.
I think 8.5 is probably a better line. But if it was 7.5, I would hammer the over. If it's 8.5 for this purposes, I'm going over.
Okay.
Um, I think a 9-win season is realistic. I think they split the first half. They split South Dakota State and Nevada. I'm gonna pencil in Central Arkansas as a win because I have to for this exercise. And then I think they win like two of the three: Montana, Idaho, UC Davis. And I just don't know which two. So that would then put them at three losses, or that would put them at two losses. So they could even lose two of those three against Montana, Idaho, and UC Davis,
I
and
mean,
still
looking back at it, I think 8.5 is the better line. I think I'm gonna hammer the under though.
okay. That's
Um,
fair.
so because that would be 3 losses to be over, 4 losses to be under, between UC Davis, Idaho, Montana, and then there are 2 games to start the year. Do they get one of those? Yes. Do they get 2 of those?
Doubt
I
it.
don't I don't feel good about the FBS game, even though it's a bit of a cupcake FBS. Not bottom of the barrel, but certainly not successful. And then looking at their Big Sky stretch, the only thing that gives me a little bit of like they're gonna get in like to that 8 category, or like above that 8 category, is potentially because they're Montana's kryptonite. I think that, and then just having that grit, that pissed offness to get into the playoffs, potentially beat Davis at the end of the year, where Davis doesn't have to necessarily win that game to get in the playoffs. But I'm gonna stay on the under. I just feel like it's a steep hill to climb. They have the tools to do it, but I'm not sure everything's gonna come together as smoothly as they think.
Very fair. Very. I think 8.5. I think you're right. 8.5 is the line there. So do we got Idaho next?
Wow, I didn't. Somebody missed Idaho, so we're going to NAU real quick. because I guess
Okay.
there is potentially 6 playoff teams. It mathematically that's not going to happen. I don't think that's possible, but we have 6 potential playoff teams, so this is kind of where the over-unders come from. So NAU, their interesting games are going to Arizona State, which is technically ranked 11th in FBS. They travel to Southern Utah. They host Incarnate Word. They host Montana State. They go to UC Davis. They host Idaho. And that's the notableness for the rest of the year. I put them at 7.5. I think this is kind of like you squeak in playoffs at 7 or you get left out of playoffs at 7. Like 7 is historically safe, but I don't know. This is a year where historically safe is going to be enough.
Yeah, so that's tough because Arizona State, I'll pencil in as a loss. Same with Incarnate. Um, UC Davis, Montana State, and Idaho. I will pencil in as losses, and that's 7-5. So I have to go under here because for a couple of my overs to work out, I need to go like somebody's got to lose those games. But I do think if this was I don't hate 7.5. I don't hate the over because they just gotta sneak one of those. They just gotta and not like slip up to a Southern Utah or funny they play both of our future Big Sky brethren.
Right.
Um, I'm gonna go under and say they win 7. And you're right, that is very very on the fence for playoffs.
Would you feel like hitting the over if it was 6.5?
Yeah, if it's 6.5, I think the over is. I don't want to say almost guaranteed. I don't like because it's. I think 7.5 is the better number because I think they have 5 games they will be not favored in, and that's kind of what the exercise should be. But I do think the chances of them winning one of those games is pretty high. Just to win one of those games, but then the chances of them losing a game outside of that is also not zero. So I think 7.5 is the right number, and I'm going to go under, but I don't feel good about it. I wouldn't feel good about either. Is kind of where I settle.
See, those 5 tough games for me are 5 tough games where, unless Pennington is doing some great numbers and UC Davis is not able to recoup with a competent or successful quarterback. Same with Idaho, but Idaho's transfer is supposed to be very good and all this other stuff. So it would hinge on UC Davis's quarterback and Idaho's quarterback not being good, and the rest of the sum of their holes, the sum of the parts put together, I feel like it's still good enough to win a ball game. Um, and then it depends on Pennington. If Pennington's not in, does NAU win a game? I feel worse about that than I do about the other teams' supporting cast. So I'm gonna say under.
Then, do you want me to set the over under for Idaho, or did you get it in that?
I'll read off the schedule. You choose the number because I feel like my
Okay,
numbers have been like okay, but not like super great.
huh, I think you've
So,
been solid on them. Hit me.
so
I
Washington State start the year off, and then they go to San Jose State as well, which we talked about in the Bears episode. They're ranked pretty high in the Mountain West. Then they go to Montana the next week, and they see us the week after, but that won't matter. They go to Northern Arizona. They host Davis. They go to Sacramento State, and then Battle of Idaho at the end of the year, if that's interesting.
I think the line will be 8.5 because I think Washington State, Montana, and UC Davis, Sac State, and NAU are kind of the possible losses there. But I think they'll be favored at least in that NAU game. So I'll say, are they gonna? Yeah, 8.5 is the number I'd set. What are you thinking?
If it's 8.5, I'm hammering the under.
Okay, were you thinking lower then?
I think they get to 8 wins on the season. I'd even potentially argue for 7.
Okay, who's the So you think they'll lose all those games that they could possibly lose, like
For sure,
Wazoo,
losses: Washington
Montana?
State, San Jose State, Montana.
Oh shoot, I miss San Jose State looking through that.
Yeah, like
Ah,
those are two gritty FBS
that's
teams.
true. Shit.
Um, Washington State might not be great, but it's just roster wise, they're just so developed. San Jose
Maybe it
State,
should be. Maybe it should be 7.5 now that I look at it. Do you think, does that feel
I
like a
think
more
seven and
accurate
a half,
number?
just because
Yeah.
like, would I pick them in any of to get to 9? No. Would I pick them to get to 8? I could reason for it, but I think it's going to be a weird shit show where, mathematically we have to go back and see if this is actually possible, but I think NAU could end up 7 wins. Idaho could end up 7 wins. They're both looking at the edge of the playoffs, and potentially one of them doesn't make it in.
So are you still going?
I think
You
that could
cut
be
out a
some
bit
of
on.
the.
Are
So
you
I
still
think
going under at
potentially
7?
Idaho and NAU could both end up at 7 wins because of chaos caused by Sacramento State, and we're looking at a bunch of 7 win Big Sky teams, standing on the doorstep being like, pick me, and like somebody might not get picked.
No, that's a good call, because it's not enough oxygen for all the teams up top. So I'm with you on the under there, even at 7.5. I don't feel good about it, but I also don't feel good about picking the over, because I do think they're gonna lose to a Sac State. And you're right, San Jose State. If this was 2 years ago, I think Idaho maybe even be favored with Gavani McCoy and Co and Hatton against a San Jose program that was in turmoil. But things have turned a bit on both sides. So I'm with you there. What are we at? We're about
See,
50.
I'm gonna be a hater for a second. I hate, but I also respect how well the ESPN2 games were chosen, because I thought, those are kind of like just gimmicky. They just kind of went with like the rivalry games, and they went with like easy pickings for that week. Honestly, I think they might have nailed the shit out of it this year. I think those might be the hinge points of the season. Like Sacramento, Montana, going to be a hinge point. Idaho, Montana, potentially a hinge point and a rivalry game. And then the other ESPN2 game I see on Idaho's schedule, which probably nobody has eyes on, but definitely could be a playoff push decider. Idaho at NAU on Halloween, 8:30 p.m.
Ooh,
on ESPN2. That might be Halloween Havoc, to steal from the wrestling world per se. That might be Halloween Havoc on the Big Sky playoff potential teams. Like, it seems like a weird niche game, but that might be one of those gatekeeping games towards playoffs, kind of like how Davis and Sacramento State might be.
yeah. There'll be a lot of big games as we come down the stretch. But we have a couple big games to start off. Week 0, UNC isn't getting any action, but okay, big games may have been a stretch, but I needed to get us into it somehow. There's one pretty big game, but let's start. I think there are two that I think we'll agree on all three because of our conversations here, but two that I think are almost undoubted we'll agree on. Idaho State heading to UNLV. I got the running Rebels, even with Brendan Marion and Barry Odom getting out of there. But who the old Mississippi State guy that I did this exact same thing last week, and I can't remember his name. But he's the new coach there. Also, is it Florida? For Dan Mullen.
Dan Mullen.
Thank you, Dan Mullen. There. Um, but yeah, so I have UNLV win there. I assume same for you. I don't know if there's a lot of breaking it down that needs to be done on this one.
Yeah, I think the replacements end up taking down the Bob Kitties, the Bengal Kitties. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
be careful.
no, I think Montana State could beat UNLV this year for sure. But yeah, looking at UNLV, like, just it's a good enough roster as it is. I think Cody Hawkins is doing a great job there, but he's got him to the middle of the conference. I don't think we're getting above that quite yet. I think there's definitely a plateau roster and talent-wise, and it's going to take good coaching and great chemistry to get above that. I don't think they're going to do that first week of the season.
All right, Tarleton State is coming into Portland, I believe, actually, which is, I mean,
On
you
ESPN
gotta
two,
schedule
even.
what?
It's even on ESPN two. Like,
Okay, so technically they're not actually coming into Portland; they're coming into Hillsboro, Oregon. But either way, I think Tarleton, a soon-to-be FBS program, is going to be is going to come in and take care of business. I would put money on the Texans by 3 touchdowns.
so if it's Hillsboro, that means ESPN two is going to a high school stadium. Are we sure this is the college schedule, Chris?
It is a. I will give them credit. The facility is like nice enough. Like it's not huge, but it does have, I think, minor league baseball like in the same facility. So I don't like that shouldn't be an issue. But also the heat doesn't work in one of their press box rooms at least. But that won't matter this early on.
Well, Portland State is a minor league Big Sky team, so they're gonna lose. I like your 3 touchdowns. I'll say it's at least a 20-point difference.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking, yeah, 21 and a half or something. But all right, UC Davis versus Mercer in Montgomery, Alabama. This is technically, I think UC Davis might technically be listed as the home team. It's basically not basically, but if you're putting travel time into the old Google Maps, this is a home game for Mercer. Um, that being said, big test week 0, which why the hell are you doing this? You know, like, uh, but
These
big
are
test
already hard
weeks,
enough.
yeah. So I'm going to take UC Davis just because I think they still have the pedigree. And I think they bring back a lot of pieces, like some O-line starters coming back, a lot to replace in the skill positions. But I think I just think they're two different classes of team. Wherever the split is, I think UC Davis is above it and Mercer's below it.
Yeah, Mercer's stingy. They definitely were last year, but I want to see that from them this year again first. Um, Trying to look and see where they were in the top 25, but it says 12 on here. Trying to see where we had them in the red shirts poll, but honestly, like Mercer, their specialty was defense, and UC Davis's specialty was offense. So I think if we're going hand in hand with that, I think ultimately that we're still going to see UC Davis pull it out. And the FCS, we had them as
11.
11th. I put them as 9th, but I did put them right behind UC Davis. So I think it could be a close game, probably closer than everybody in the Davis crew wants to see that early on, especially with pretty significant travel. Like Alabama's a bit longer of travel and logistics than usual, so just need everybody to. Well, obviously, you want the win, but let's be careful. Let's not mess up the rest of the season because you got chasing the Bobcats' tail to be the whole rest of your season.
Ben, it's a good strategy after losing our pick'em 2 years in a row just to tail me early on. You know, you don't want to get too far behind out of the gate. But
I'm
yeah,
certainly not picking Portland State, so I'm not going on that limb because that's gonna break.
I didn't go. Oh, I was like, I thought you're saying I picked Portland State, but God no. Okay, we have 3 of the same picks this week, but that will surely start differ next week when we have a full week 1 slate. We will we'll add the game of the week and we'll do all the Big Sky stuff. But there were just the most compelling FCS game this week was obviously, I'd say, that UC Davis Mercer. So
Yeah,
we'll
we didn't
keep it
have
in
to go out of our way, so that can be 2 points. But either way, we picked
it's
the same way.
the
So
same team. So
yeah,
uh well, awesome. As always, if you like what we're doing, or I guess before that, two episodes in a row, I stopped my spiel after that sentence. We'll be back to our two episode a week format now. We'll have kind of the bear with us at the beginning of the week, then the beyond the den a little bit later on. So keep an eye out for that. And as always, if you like what we're doing, please like, comment, subscribe, review. Tell your mom to like, comment, subscribe, review. And if you don't like what we're doing, Ben's inbox is always open. I believe that is at Bear Claw Media on Twitter. Tweets by Ben Schleiger. He's got his dukes up for you already, so give him your worst shot. Have a good one.